Hi, I am Madeline James, and it is just about the end of Q1, so I thought it was probably a good time to do a bit of reflection and thoughts on the whole HB90 method and how my first quarter went, and talk about what my plans are going to be going forward. I had done a number of, custom things, I guess you can call it that, at the beginning of Q1 that were slightly different than the regular HB90 method, but the way it's sort of set up is to allow people to adapt it to the way that fits them best. And I knew going into this that there were going to be some things that probably wouldn't work for me, that I'd have to sort of figure out a better way to do. But it's really hard to know that until you've taken the time to actually try things out. I will link all my other HB90 method videos, or my playlist, I guess, down below, and the actual HB90 site, which is the Heart Breathing's 90-day course or plan by Sarah Cannon. We're gonna go through, how Q1 went, what worked, what didn't. We're gonna talk about, how much I actually achieved with my goals and how much I think that this HB90 method helped me. And then we're gonna talk about, my plans for the future, the things I want to change, how I'm, planning a little bit differently for Q2, and then, do a little bit of a planner walkthrough. So as a general reflection of, the HB90 method after trying it for a quarter is that I really, really like it. I like the idea of looking at it in these 90-day chunks. I think that's really helpful, both for giving you enough time to really dedicate yourself to something and not be spending so much time planning repeatedly. You can sort of have enough time to really get into it, but it's also a short enough period of time that you can sort of adapt, and after 90 days, if you need to rethink things and pivot a little bit, you have the flexibility to do that, which really worked for me. I really also like the idea of the task blocks and keeping track of everything based off how much time you put towards something, because you can combine that with sort of tracking and keeping track of how much different types of tasks take you, so that in the future for planning how long things will take. And that just seems a lot more realistic to me and a lot more, tangible. If you saw how I set up my Q1 planner for this, you'll know that I didn't fully do everything the same way that the initial basic HB90 method is. I used a sort of monthly planner where I had bi-weekly spreads, and then I used a monthly dashboard and a monthly tracker in here instead of doing a Kanban board. Just because a lot of the tasks I'm working on are edit this chapter, now edit this chapter, now edit this chapter. There's not enough different things going on for me to really take much use of sticky notes and moving them around. Although I think if I was working those kinds of tasks, I think that would work well for me, but that didn't really fit. So let me switch you down, and I'll kind of just do a quick recap of what I did in Q1 and what worked, and then we can start looking at what I'm doing for Q2. Alright, so this is looking at the sort of monthly spread I did for January, and I did one of these for each month. So I have January, February, and what I have so far for March. I haven't fully finished updating these pages, but I think in general these monthly pages helped for me a lot. It gives me a monthly look at just how much time I'm spending on things and what I'm spending time on. You'll also be able to see that I sort of tuckered out a little bit partway through, and these revision task blocks are a little bit harder for me than the drafting ones. I just can't do as much at a time with them, which is something I'm learning, but I think tracking like this really worked for me. I don't necessarily think keeping track of my YouTube videos and balance and exercise like this was really necessary, but I wanted to sort of get into good habits, so I'm probably not gonna, I don't think I'm gonna pull that forward in the same way. Because it's more just going to be this is how much time I can spend on these tasks, or how much time I'm hoping to in terms of exercise. But I think getting the more writing focused stuff, making that be a focus, is going to be the most important. I also didn't take much use of this space, so I'm going to consider that going forward. But I think you can see here in general that, I did pretty good. I got a decent bit of stuff done. And so I'm definitely planning on moving these forward. Now, these monthly pages that I did weren't super helpful for me. I don't know, I didn't utilize these very much at all for basically anything. I never referenced them, so I did use them in a slightly different way for Q2, which I'll show you. But if you have any ideas for ways to make these sort of spreads, like just the month helpful, let me know. But then I have my bi-weekly spreads. And you'll have seen this before. I have a week on each page, and I just keep track of how much I've spent on each task, and then, you know, when I did different things. I use this sort of gray highlighter to kind of mark when I wanted to do something. And then my goal was then I covered it up with the color once I actually, you know, spent that time, so I could see, oh, you know, my plan is to do stuff this night, but then I did end up doing that, or I didn't end up doing it, etc. I also had this balance tracking thing where I could try to do a task, do something fun and relaxing, and do like exercise or cleaning in a day. And I think this focused helped me, but I think continuing to track it like this doesn't help me really. It's just a little bit burdensome, so I'm just not going to do that going forward. I do like tracking this just so that I know like this is how many task blocks these things take me. So I'm going to keep doing this, and for the most part, I want to keep my bi-weekly spreads the same because this was really helpful for me. Seeing 2 weeks at a time definitely worked a lot better than like 1 week or doing daily, although I know that works for some people. But, you know, you can sort of see through a lot of the weeks that I have in here that, you know, I did a lot of stuff. I tracked every week. I used this consistently, although sometimes I was obviously not as productive as other weeks, but I still did it. I do also want to add in general that I think that the amount of time I gave tasks was really good. So for the current phase of revisions I'm in, I gave 2 task blocks per chapter, which is an hour, and that has worked out pretty great. Sometimes it's a little above, sometimes it's a little below, but on average I think that works. And then for drafting scenes, I gave myself 6 task blocks per scene, or 3 hours, which worked well for that too. And then, yeah, I didn't really use this at all for anything personal, which I had sort of planned on including personal to-dos in here, so that's something I'm thinking about moving forward because I'd like this to be more useful than just tracking what I'm doing for my writing projects, but, you know, that's going to be an ongoing process, I think. One big thing, though, that I found that was not really helpful for me, or wasn't handled in the way I did this in Q1, was that I couldn't keep track of things that I hadn't planned for. So, you know, there's always going to be little things. Like I spent a lot of time reading new craft books. I spent some time doing like writing project adjacent tasks. I ended up doing like 10 queries. There was just like a lot of things like that that was helpful to me, but I hadn't specifically planned on doing it. So I want to have a way in the future to sort of keep track of extra time that I spent in ways that I wasn't accounting for, but which is still, you know, productive or helpful, or, you know, that I had to do. So those are sort of the list of what I'm keeping in mind. So now my goal for the end of Q1 had been to finish basically this draft of my blood magic project, and I did not do that. I did not get everything done that I wanted to, both due to, you know, spending time on other things that I wasn't expecting, my whole family being sick constantly, and just general, you know, maybe a little bit of burnout. I don't know. I didn't quite get everything done that I'd planned for, which is something to keep in mind for, you know, planning Q2. So I only made it through, I guess, like, I think I'm at 13 or 14 chapters at this point through my revision, and I plan on making it through 20 by the end of the month. I still have a couple weeks, so I'm pretty confident that I can hit that, but yes, so I've definitely had to tweak what I thought I was going to get done, and then I also need to keep track of, you know, I want to actually plan on doing a reasonable amount of things, whereas clearly this quarter it was too much, but it's hard to know if that was just due to, you know, everyone in my family being sick and me being sick a lot, or if, you know, it's just the normal way things are going to be. All right, the one last thing I wanted to show you real quick was my Q1 dashboard. And I really liked this. This was sort of to give me the ability to sort of see at a glance how much I'd gotten done in Q1 instead of having like a Kanban board. And I really enjoyed this, and I think it worked well for me. I haven't put all of my stickers down for my revisions. I don't update this like every time I do something, but it's been pretty helpful. I do want to make another one of these for Q2 once I see exactly where I end Q1 and, yeah, I'll do the same thing with stickers. I'll probably show it in one of my vlogs once, you know, the quarter actually starts, but I really enjoyed this and I got a lot of feedback from people that they liked the idea of doing this, so, you know, feel free to steal this idea if you want to. Alright, so moving on to planning for Q2. The very first thing I did was kind of look back through Q1 in what I've done so far, and I sort of started over here with just writing down what my goals and what I actually did. So I had each week of the quarter, how many task blocks I was expecting to spend, and then how many I actually spent. And I need to catch up on this. I think I finished another week and almost a second week. And then like my actual task blocks over here. So you can sort of see that going down here, for the most part, I didn't hit the weekly goals. Now, some weeks I went over, but most weeks I was a little bit behind. And just counting up to this point of what I had expected to get done and what I actually got done, I got 206 task blocks out of 296, which is a little over 2/3, maybe like 3/5 of the number of task blocks that I had wanted to get done. And I don't know, I don't necessarily like this. I know in the the HB90 method tries to keep track of, you know, giving yourself some wiggle room so that if things happen, you can account for that, but I feel like with the place my life is in with my kids and just how little time I have, it is so easy for me to be pushed over the edge of not really being able to get much done. Like, I only have a little bit of time each day. I'm already kind of pushed to my limits with work and my kids. Like, a lot can push me over. So one of the things I wanted to do for my goals was to use the concept of good, better, best for my task blocks. And this is something that I think Sarah Cannon does in a few different other places. I don't think she does it in the task block estimates, but I could be remembering incorrectly. But I wanted to do that because then my better goal could be more in line with what I did before, because on a good week, I can do that. And on my best weeks, I, you know, went over what, you know, I was sort of expecting to be able to do. So this can give me an idea of like, if I plan each week to be whatever my better task blocks are, so like if I'm reasonably healthy and only lose like maybe an evening, this is what I will hit. If I want to push past that, great, but like from a weekly perspective, I want to expect this. But in terms of how much in total I plan to get done in the whole quarter, I want to aim for every week to be just good. And I'm thinking this will help for Q2, but we will find out. So down here, I just sort of wrote down what I wanted to end up doing, but before I did all of this, after I did sort of this reflection, what I decided to do was use the actual monthly pages in here to try and keep track of how much I could do a week. And there's a whole thing in the HB90 workbook where you sort of figure out how much you can get done each week, how many task blocks, but that's not as easy to reference for me when I'm then going through and filling out my weekly spread. So what I did, I can show you this, is I went through every month. So I sort of marked down any like trips or big things I knew were happening. I marked, you know, working times, and then I used these little removable stickers where they're bigger than this, but I have like little like Avery removable stickers, and I wrote down how many task blocks I could get done. So in a, you know, normal good week, I have, you know, 4 on Monday, 4 on Wednesday, 4 on Thursday, 4 on Friday, and then if we do like a full split weekend, I have, I think 10 on Saturday and like 8 on Sunday or something. I don't know. But I have like a normal week, and I sort of went through and put all those down other than in times where we had stuff going on. So like there might be a party this day, so I didn't use any task blocks here. For May, I'm going to be out of town a little bit, so I didn't put task blocks for all of that. I just sort of put a couple in here that I think I'll be able to manage, and that sort of a thing. And this way I can always reference this, because this is a problem that I had like back here, is that there's nothing really useful for me here. And so when I was filling out these weekly spreads, it was hard for me to remember, oh, exactly how much was I planning on doing this week? How much was I planning on doing this week? How much was I planning on doing in different like categories? Like that was like a little bit difficult for me to figure out. So I just did it in here. And then I wrote on the sides how many task blocks that was. So like 16 this week, 26 this week, 20, 34, etc. And I went through every month in Q2 and went through and did that. And then I wrote those down, and then I wrote out what that would look like good, better, and best. So I think what I did is I took off 4 for good and added 4 for best. So it's sort of a 8 task block spread between good and best, which is about 4 hours, which is, you know, an evening basically. But so I went through and did that, and I got my totals. And I wanted to base all my goals based off this good goal because, you know, that's what I ended up actually doing last quarter, and that way I won't be behind. Like, as long as I hit this, I'm okay. I am on track. You know, I can consider myself not behind, which I think will be helpful for me. And then I sort of went through and calculated, you know, what I wanted to use those task blocks for. Obviously, exercise is important, and I did, instead of just having it be for a week, I did go through each of these months and figure out how many exercise days I could reasonably have in the week. So like if we're gonna be out of town, I can't exercise in the same way. Now there's still like, I'm still normally running around doing things a lot more when I'm out of town. So I'm still exercising, but I don't need to like track the task blocks, if that makes sense. So I went through and did that and came up with 41 task blocks, which left me with 245 for the quarter. And then my first big goal was to finish those revisions that I didn't finish this quarter, which I estimate to need 70 task blocks to do. That leaves me with 175. And then from there I had to make some tweaks, because originally I went through and planned out the YouTube videos like I did for Q1, where I have one world building guide video a month, which is 12 task blocks, and that put me at 80. And I was just not okay with that amount of productivity. So what I decided to do was cut those videos out, which leaves me at 48 task blocks at the quarter to spend on making YouTube videos. And then like if I end up having extra time or a free day and I want to do one of my world building guide videos, I can still do that. But it has to be like once I start doing more task blocks, you know, like that's not the top priority. So I took off those task blocks, and then the next goal that I wanted to get done was one last pass on my blood magic project in revisions, which is 1 task block per chapter, so 55. That left me with 72 task blocks, and then I wanted to spend, you know, I had to make a choice here, right? My original goal was to be done and start querying, or be ready to start querying my blood magic project at the same time I finished the first pass or the first draft of my Magic Forge project, but I can't do both. So I decided it was going to be more important for me to sort of get to the point where I'm ready to query. So I wrote down how much time I think it's going to spend to get ready to query, like how much time I want to spend refining my query and my synopsis and doing research, and I don't know if this is reasonable. We're going to have to find out. But I gave myself 48 task blocks for all of this, which left me with 24, which then I'll spend finishing my Magic Forge draft. And that won't get me all the way through. I think that's only an extra, like, where did I write it down? Yeah. That's only an extra 4 scenes if I only do 24. But if I end up doing, you know, my best goal, then I'd do 21 scenes instead and get further in my Magic Forge project. So I think as long as I'm doing it around the same time, like starting to query and finishing this draft before I start something new, I think that'll still be good for me. So that is my goal for Q2. I want to finish all the revisions of my Blood Magic project, which is my current revision pass, and then another like line edit revision pass. I want to prepare to query, and then I want to make a little bit more project on my Magic Forged first draft, and that is what I think I'm going to be able to get done in Q2. So there's a couple other little things that I want to do differently in Q2, but first let me show you how I started setting up these pages. So you already saw this. So this is what I have for my April monthly spread. I have the same sort of thing over here. You know, I marked the weeks here, so it's a little bit easier for me to see. And then over here, I sort of combined the YouTube video and the exercise tracking stuff into something a little bit more condensed. This one is open. I think I might use this to track extra time spent. So like if I read a craft book or do research on something, I can keep track of it here and how many task blocks. And I might assign colors to that. I'm not sure yet. I may just make them like gray over here just to show that it's like extra stuff. And then I have my expected goals down here. So for each week, this is the good, better, best task blocks. I can put down here what I actually spent. I could break it down over here if I want to. But I don't want to go ahead and fill out what every single chapter is because I don't know how far I'm going to be each month. So I'm going to wait to like actually number these and write exactly which chapters I need to do this week. And I haven't started doing the weekly spreads. We'll do one of those later, but I put down on a sticky sort of my expectations are. So weeks 1 through 4, if it's good, that's 80 task blocks. That means I'd spend 27 task blocks between YouTube and exercising, which leaves me 53, which means that I can do 26 chapters of revisions, which if I do actually get to chapter 21 or chapter 20, that'll be chapters 21 through 46, but we'll see how I get. And then I can adjust this based off where I finish March. And then I sort of started prepping and doing the same thing for May and April. So I still need to do the lines here. I still need to mark this out, but I don't know exactly how far I'm gonna be. So like I might do a little bit of more prep each month just to make sure that I'm setting this up based off where I am. And I'm not expecting me to be in an exact place at the start of each month like I sort of did in the last quarter. So I have that, and then I don't remember how far I got on June. April, May, June. Yeah, so I sort of did this. I need to draw the lines and set this up, but I did write where I expect to be if I follow good exactly. Okay, so I haven't started setting up the weekly spreads, and I really do want to go through and do this before the quarter starts. But I'm still using the same little, like, I guess, template sort of thing that my husband 3D printed for me for the last quarter. And I think this sort of weekly spreads really worked for me in terms of the spacing. Alright, so something I'm not entirely sure how I want to do is how to put down like my plan versus my actual like time spent. So if you saw for the most part before in Q1, I had highlighted the gray task block. So each one of these like highlighter marks is a task block that I planned to do. And you can sort of see that like some weeks I did it at that time, some weeks I didn't. And like I don't think this necessarily didn't work. I just feel like there could be like a better way to do it, because when I lose time because like my kids are sick or something, I don't know, it just kind of looks a little weird to me. And I also can't track what I plan on spending that time for. So I can't be like, oh, I want to work on this day and this on this day, and this needs to be YouTube time and this needs to be this, right? Like these are just generic task blocks that don't tell me what I wanted to work on. So something I tried out, which you can sort of see the remnants of here, is that I tried using these little removable stickers to write down what I would spend the time on here, and then I put them down. But the problem is that even if I do spend the time doing that, I don't want to leave the stickers here. I want it to be marked what I actually do, so I'd be putting the stickers down temporarily and then peeling them all up. And I don't necessarily know if that's what I want to keep doing. So like I have that done here for the last week of the quarter where I have, I need to work on my Q2 plan, which I've sort of already done. I plan on doing a video here and plan on doing, these projects here. I can't decide if I like this or not, or if I don't like this. I don't know. I'm not sure that I necessarily have a system here that is going to work perfectly for what I want, but at the same time, I don't know. I think it's just going to take time to figure out, you know? Alright, so I think what I'm going to try, at least for this first week, is normally I mark the time I actually spend with these highlighters. And so my thought is, what if I try, instead of just doing these gray lines, what if I take the color of what I want to spend there and make a line, and then I can highlight it with what I actually do? And then that might work. Let me see over here. So if I were to, just say for an example, this is what I was planning on doing, you know, something like, I don't know, this is kind of just ridiculous, but say this was my plan, right, on different days. Then when I actually spent the time, I could, you know, mark it for sure. And I guess, would this still work if I spent, like, if I did it at the wrong time? Does that look weird? That's the question. I'm not sure how I feel about this. I feel like maybe if I was planning on doing something else and then I decided not to do it, I could always white out it. Oh, did I do that right? I'm really bad with whiteout. But then I don't know if I could still highlight it, you know? Like, I mean, I guess that sort of works. It might just take a while to dry. I'm not sure if this is the best idea, but I'm gonna try this out at least for maybe the month of April. So, let's see. So, I'm not sure how I feel about this. We'll see how it goes, but once I start getting into the point of working on multiple tasks, I don't know if that'll necessarily work or if I'll want to go back to using the gray to just mark wanting to do anything. Or I suppose I could even use just like a gray marker for everything other than my blue and my green later on, but we'll see how this goes. And then the other things I do on weekly spreads is I used to have the balance tracker, but we're not doing that anymore. So I want to just have like exactly what I'm working on here. So let's see, I plan on doing one video during this period of time. So we'll just do like video over here. I think this is roughly what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna go through and mark out the rest of my weeks. I might not do all of them like this, just so that I can sort of see what I'm gonna want to use as a tracking methodology, if I want to do these lines and then highlight over them, or if I want to go back to using gray, or if I want to try out the stickers again. I'm not really sure. We'll sort of see how that goes, but I think that's a pretty good start for the quarter. I have everything planned out at least, like I know what I'm going to be working on, which is a good sign, and yeah, I'm feeling pretty motivated. I am sort of sad that I can't get done as much as I wanted to get done. Like, I was hoping to also be able to completely finish the first draft of my Magic Forge project. That's obviously not going to happen, but you know, what can you do? So, you know, I'm just gonna have to be okay with that, and, you know, this is what happens. It's hard being a mom and having a life and having a full-time job and trying to be a writer and do everything, and it's a lot. So, yes, this is my plan for Q2. If you have any thoughts or ideas of other ways I could track things, please let me know. I'd love to hear them. And but yeah, otherwise, I will see you next time.